All right, let's make a tent together. Let's try to practice. We just saw edit mode for the first time the other video. Let's do some more edits to see just how effective that mode is. So if I want to create a tent, obviously there's not really a mesh that resembles a tent, although we could get started with perhaps just a cube. Perhaps just a cube might do the trick. And using edit mode, we can transform this into a very simple tent, at least for now. So once we have our cube, let's do the base of the tent. So I'm just going to scale this cube up, and I'm going to scale it down on the Z axis. So I'm going to basically shrink it, just something like that per se. Now, if this is the tent I'm trying to model, it does kind of have a similar cube shape, except it kind of stretches out. You can see it starts flat and it kind of stretches out. It gets a bit bigger as it grows. So over in Blender, I'm going to stretch it out just a bit more, but I want this top face to be stretched out more. So I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to press 3 for face select. And I'm going to select the very top face of my tent right now. So if I press S, I could scale it, and it does become bigger, except this tent that I'm particularly looking at, it doesn't scale in all directions. It's actually just scaling on the Y direction. So it's actually just stretching out along one axis. So just up to personal taste, I'm going to scale it, and I'm just going to pop it out just a bit, just to give it some flavor there. And you can see it's now stretching out in one direction. Now looking at this tent, it kind of goes in the reverse direction. It goes up, but it also comes and it joins at the top there. So what I could do is, I don't think we've used this tool yet. I'm still in edit mode with this top face selected. I can use the extrude tool by pressing E on my keyboard. And this will let me extrude. It'll let me extend my face upwards. I don't have to press Z or anything. It's just going to lock in that direction. So this is kind of the roof of the tent right up there. Now, obviously, my tent doesn't stay flat. It kind of joins itself to form a triangle shape. So once again, with the top face selected, I'm going to scale it along the Y, and I'm going to shrink it. And just be a little careful. I'm going to create basically kind of like a triangular prism, if you will. And it kind of has that general shape of this little tent I'm looking at here. Now, a couple things. You might not do this. I'm just looking at my tent. I want this to be a little bit fatter, so I'm just going to select it all and scale it. It wasn't as fat as I had hoped it would be. There we go. So if you're like me, you probably have this shape, and I don't like this little rectangle face on the top. This tent looks like it forms a perfectly sharp edge and not a face on the top. So what I'm going to do, this is a cool trick, is I can press 1 to go into vertex mode. And if I zoom in here, I can select this vertice, and I can hold shift and select this vertice so that I have both of these vertices selected. And then if I press M on my keyboard, it brings up the merge menu. And most of the time we use the merge menu. We're just going to use the at center. That's going to take those two vertices, and it's going to, as the name suggests, it's going to merge them. It's going to combine them into one vertice. So now I've got a very sharp point instead of that rectangular face on the top. However, that's just one side of the roof. Let's go over here and do the exact same thing. So I'm going to select both vertices. I'm going to press M, and I'm going to merge at the center. And now I've got that sharp, jagged, triangular peak, just like this little model does right here. Now, just for some housekeeping, I have two faces on the front. I have this triangular face, and I have this bottom kind of not rectangle, parallelogram kind of shape. I would like to join these faces into one single face. So I'm going to show you another cool trick. I'm going to select 2 for my edge selects, and I want to get rid of this middle line. It's cutting my shape in half, my face in half. I don't want that. So I'm going to press X to delete, and I'm going to press E on my keyboard because I'm deleting this particular edge, this line that I have selected. You'll notice it cuts out the face, and then it leaves me with no face left, where I really just wanted 2 faces to become one. So now what I can do is I still am on edge select. I can select this edge, hold shift, select this edge, select this shift, select this edge, and select this edge. So I've got all 5 edges of the front of this tent selected. And I can press F to fill it. And that's a very useful tool as well. So now I've got one singular face on the front. And unlike the back, which is in 2 faces, which I don't really care. I just care about the front for something I'm going to show you in a bit. All right, let's keep this tent going. It does have a bit of a roof on it. So you'll notice this roof is bended and it's nice and perfectly curved. And we'll get into that in the future. Let's just keep things simple for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press tab and make sure I'm in object mode because I'm done editing this particular base of my tent. Why don't we call this tent in the outliner? And I'm going to press this little eye icon because I don't want to see it right now because I want to just make a quick little roof. To make a roof with a little bit of curvature or a little bit of life to it, I'm going to add a plane. And I'll just scale this plane up a little bit just to kind of match the size of my tent, but we can worry about that later. Now in edit mode, I'm going to add some loop cuts. Now I recommend you add, let's see, how many should we add? 5 loop cuts? Now let's do 7 loop cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yellow lines. Press left on the mouse and then press right on the mouse. So a little left-right action. Now what I can do is I can switch to our proportional editing by pressing O. And I'm going to select the very middle edge. So I'm still on edge select here. And I've selected the very middle edge. I'm going to lock my view to the X just like this. I can hardly see the plane because plane is just 2-dimensional, so it's kind of not really showing up. That's okay. And I'm going to press G. And if I have proportional editing on, you can see as I pull up the middle edge, I can, if I increase my radius here of what I'm selected, I can pull it up and you'll see that all of the edges kind of follow. And I'm going to lock it to the Z axis here so it's nice and perfectly straight. And I can play with my scroll wheel to basically decide how much I want this proportional editing to affect the other lines. Maybe something like that looks good. And now you've kind of got this roof that does have a little bit of flavor to it. It's not perfectly, curved like this one. We don't want to deal with that right now, but at least we've got some geometry, some folding that kind of looks like a tarp hanging over the tent. So I'm going to press O just to turn proportional editing off, and I'm going to go back into object mode. So this being the roof of my tent, I probably should bring back the base of my tent and get this roof fitted on nicely. So clearly my roof needs to be moved up in the Z direction, just like that. And my roof is looking just a bit too small, so I'm just going to scale it up and I'm going to move it a little bit down. And I'm still getting some clipping, so maybe it needs to be a bit bigger. And I'm going to move it down just like that. Now, I don't think I'm going to get rid of the clipping, so I might have to do one of these numbers. I'm going to... no, I don't want to do that yet. Let's keep it simple. My roof is too narrow, so yes, I can scale it, but I can scale it along the Y, so I can kind of stretch it out, just like that. And maybe I have to scale it down a bit, and then maybe I have to stretch it out even some more. Just like that. Cool. And I really don't like these little flaps on the edge. Yours might look better than mine. Mine don't look particularly good right now. So I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm actually just going to delete these outer flaps. So I'm going to select 3 for face select, X, I'm going to delete the face. I'm going to select this face, X, delete the face. And now my tarp seems to be sitting a little bit more better. My tarp does look a little too long in the X direction, so I am back in object mode, and I'm going to scale it along the X just to tighten it up a bit. And now we've got a pretty loose kind of replica of this tent right here. It's not as good as that one, but hey, we're just getting started here. One day we'll be able to make something like that a little bit more accurate. And now the last thing I would like to do for you is I would like to make a little cut for the opening of the tent. So if I am in object mode and I select my tent object, I can go into edit mode and I can use the knife tool by pressing K. This knife tool lets me basically cut out some geometry of whatever mesh I'm working with. That's why we joined the face into one on the front and not the back, so that I could use the knife tool. I could click this uppermost vertice or vertex, and if you want, you can just look at the front of your tent and you can cut a little triangular pie shape. And sometimes it doesn't always work, so you kind of have to go back and forth. But you should be able to press enter, and you should have this triangular slit cut. And now you have 3 faces. So if I'm in face select, I've got face 1, the slit, and face 2. So selecting this little piece of pie I want to get rid of, I'm going to hit X to delete it, and I'm going to hit F for the face. And you can see you got a little bit of a slit now, just like this one does too. And the last thing I want to show you is something we'll dive into a bit later, but we have to do it for now. My roof is a plane, which means it's just a 2-dimensional object. So you'll notice I can't see it when I'm looking at it directly head on. That's because it's basically like a very thin piece of paper. It appears I have to move it up just a bit. It's annoying me there. So we'll talk about modifiers later, but I'll introduce you to the first one. If you click this little blue wrench tool, this will open up your modifier options. Make sure you're in object mode. Make sure you have the roof selected. And let's add a solidify modifier. That's a very common one we'll use a lot. Solidify, as the name implies, gives your mesh, gives your particular object some thickness. It gives it some weight, so it's not just 2D. So if you increase this thickness property, that plane becomes 3D, and it actually has some, mass to it instead of just a thin piece of paper. So pick a thickness you like. I'm just going to sit with this one. And once you're happy, hit this little drop down arrow and apply the modifier. So now this roof actually has some 3D geometry to it. It's not just a flat piece of paper. All right, I'm done, but you're not done. You're going to have to do one last final touch for this tent. No tent is complete without some proper supports, so I added a bunch of cylinders to act as pegs in the ground and string holding this tent down from the fierce winds that it may be exposed to in the future. So that's your task. All I'm doing is just adding some simple 16 face cylinders and just being really meticulous with scaling these pegs, moving them along certain axes, using that 3D viewport to line things up nicely, make sure it's on the ground. And I also added the solidify modifier to the tent to give it some thickness. And let's clean up our outliner. This is getting a little too messy. So why don't I select, and you as well, once you're done, select your 4 pegs, Control J to join them into one single mesh, and let's call this pegs. Let's select your strings by holding Shift, select all 4, Control J to join them, strings. This is a cylinder I added for demonstration. And so I've got 4 nice distinct pieces of my tent, just like that. All right, there you go. That is a pretty good looking tent, and we didn't have to sweat too hard for that, I don't believe.